Hey everybody, Dr. John here with LifeSpa Ayurveda. I want to talk to you today about some new research published in the prestigious journal Nature on the brain lymphatic system. You know, there's been a lot of recent talk and research on the brain lymphatic system, the brain's lymphatic system, which dumps about 3 pounds of plaque and trash out of your head every year while you sleep at night. That research was done originally at the University of Virginia about 15 years ago. But since then, there's been doing more and more research, and this very recent study published has linked the cerebral spinal fluid to the brain lymphatic system. The cerebral spinal fluid is that fluid that moves up and down your spine, lubricates your spine, lubricates your central nervous system, and actually washes the brain lymphatic system out of your the trash out of your head to the tune of those 3 pounds. They found that the brain lymphatic system, the cerebral spinal fluid, actually drains the meninges of the brain, which are right underneath your skull. There's layers of these meninges and the arachnoid spaces where the cerebral spinal fluid runs. And it runs down like a mohawk haircut through the sagittal sinus into the nasopharyngeal region behind your nose. And behind that area are your cranial nerves, your olfactory nerves, which are directly linked to your limbic system, and that whole system of draining the ventricles of your brain, draining the meninges of the brain, and also because of the olfactory relationship to the emotional cortex, draining the emotional cortex of the brain. Now this sort of ties to some of the Ayurvedic research which said that the brain lymphatic system was linked to old emotional trauma. So in Ayurveda, there was no shortage of techniques to help support the brain lymphatic system, but nobody really understood them or really knows about them. Techniques like Shirodhara, where you pour warm oil over your forehead, actually creates a vasodilation effect in the brain lymphatics right here, where the brain lymphatic system dumps into the paranasal lymphatics and then drains through the sinuses and down through the cervical lymph and then out of the body. And getting that whole system to relax allows the brain to dump its trash better. Studies show that when you don't dump the trash as well out of the brain, it's linked to anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, inflammation, infection, sleep issues, and even autoimmune concerns where the brain can't get its trash out. And the brain, therefore, which regulates immune function, doesn't know how many fire trucks to send to the fire on Main Street. So sometimes it sends one or none, or sometimes it sends too many, which is an overzealous autoimmune reaction. And that's sort of really interesting that this is the beginning in the medical journals of understanding how we have autoimmunity. Well, in Ayurveda, they knew for thousands of years ago there was brain lymphatics, and it was linked to old emotional trauma, and they developed all these therapies to detoxify it, from the pouring of the oil of the forehead to what's called a shiro, which means head, abhyanga. Vigorous head massage has been shown to increase brain lymphatic drainage, both on the surface of your scalp, but also within the skull. The brain lymphatic system increases when you actually give yourself a vigorous head massage around the head, loosening up the skin, the scalp on your skull. Make sure your ears, there's no soreness there, and even around your face is great for the brain lymphatic system. Techniques like Shirobhasti, where they actually put a band around your head, and we pour oil into this big kind of a whole like band that holds oil, and your whole head gets soaked in oil to open up and loosen up those brain lymphatics. There's 13 what are called the mystery veins, which are pressure release valves literally in your skull. You don't hear much about those either. And as we get more congested, we lose those pressure release valves, and the skull starts to stop moving and breathing, and we become more problematic in terms of cognitive function, lack of mental clarity. And these techniques in Ayurveda are all about keeping those emissary veins functional as pressure release valves, which nobody really talks about, but this is what was understood in Ayurveda. Doing techniques like neti to open up your sinuses. Oil pulling is a technique where you swish oil in your mouth to pull this, using a technique called lipophilic mediated detox, which actually has a pulling effect not only for the mouth but even for the sinuses, which are just above the palate, and the nasal pharyngeal sinuses, where all these lymphatics go into that area. I know this is a lot, but it's just so fascinating to see the new research showing that the cerebral spinal fluid, which is linked to your breathing, is linked to the flow of the brain lymphatic system. So if you're not breathing properly, and I've written so many articles about how to strengthen your diaphragm and how critical your diaphragmatic function is for the brain cerebral spinal fluid flow. It's like brain respiration. If your brain is trying to breathe and move this fluid to wash your brain of toxins, and if you don't have that good breathing practice and your diaphragm is not functional, and in one study with elite athletes, 91% of them did not have a diaphragm relaxing and contracting fully. So most folks don't have one that works very well. So learning how to breathe, I wrote an article called The Best Diaphragmatic Exercise, which has 3 different videos there. I've written articles on all the different pranayama techniques. And what's interesting about the research I've done on pranayama techniques is that the common denominator for these different pranayama techniques is something called neuroplasticity. Changing old mental and emotional patterns of the brain. Patterns of behavior that we do the same dumb stuff again and again and again in our lives emotionally, end up in the same relationship, make the same sort of emotional mistakes again and again. And in Ayurveda, it was said that we feel those emotional traumas in our heart, called sadhaka pitta, and that's carried to the brain through what's called pranavata, and then written into the white matter of the brain called tarpaka kapha, which means to retain, record, and also to detoxify the brain, which is directly linked to the cerebral spinal fluid. That's the tarpaka kapha, the emotional aspect of kapha. Kapha is to hold on to and record. So it keeps us locked into remembering and responding to, in sometimes a negative way, to the old emotional trauma that we have. And these techniques of doing breathing techniques like pranayama to change neuroplasticity, to rewrite the emotional code, or techniques like Nasya, where you sniff medicated oil up into the sinuses to create a brain lymphatic dump, or techniques like Shira Abhyanga to create that massaging effect, or the Shirobasti or the Shirodhara. All these techniques are designed to do the same thing, to clean the brain out, to flush old emotional traumas that we don't need to hold on to. Maybe we needed to hold on to them when we were children, but as adults we can now let them go. And that's what this is really, truly all about. I've written a complete and comprehensive article citing all the science behind this new research, linking the cerebrospinal fluid to the brain lymphatic system and to all these Ayurvedic treatments. So please, I encourage you to go to my website at lifespa.com and check out the articles while you're there. Sign up for my newsletter where I get all this information on a regular basis, and also check out our Ayurvedic store at lifespa.com where you can get all of our organic Ayurvedic products. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. Douillard. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at lifespa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.